Before the success stories, the progress, there was you. You who made a choice to grow, to inspire, to overcome your own challenges. At NASM, we're in service of your limitless potential, because when you keep growing, we all get stronger, and we'll never stop making your journey our mission. Join the fitness leader. Become a fitness leader. Become a certified personal trainer.
You're listening to Random Fit with hosts Wendy Batts and Ken Miller, winner of a Gold Markham Award for Digital Media.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Random Fit with myself, Wendy Batts, and friend and co-host Ken Miller. How are you?
Good, Wendy. How's it going? You looking good?
It is going well. I love today's topic because I personally just got back from taking a week off of work and enjoying time away with my family and some friends so I could recharge. And that's what we're going to talk about, the importance of recharging right. We're going to talk about the ultimate guide to vacationing and why it is important for us to take time away from our day-to-day life and just unplug, which is super hard to do, Ken.
It is super hard to do, especially when you're someone like us, Wendy, like when you make your income by the amount of time that you spend in front of people. So even when I'm out and about visiting family or on quote unquote vacation, I'll still take my computer with me and I'll still take on a Zoom client while I'm on the road. I just have to find a time when I can be by myself, away from the family, and I can take on a session or a call. And there's been times when we've recorded a Random Fit episode and I'm out and about. So taking time to truly take advantage of what a vacation could and should be, that's, I know as well as I do, it's hard. It's not easy, especially when there's always a way to be in touch, right?
Yes.
Through work. Yeah.
We always say that technology is there's pluses and minuses. And I know for myself, I teach 100% online. Those of you guys that have followed me or been friends with me know that I teach for Penn West. I teach for their undergrad and their master's program, and it's 100% online. So it's a brick and mortar university. They're based in Pennsylvania. I live in Atlanta. And we have certain times or weeks off where we don't have classes. However, I teach in the winter. So I teach over Christmas. I teach over New Year's. I also teach in the summer. So we have 1 week in between the courses. But if not, I'm teaching all year round. And so really trying to unplug is very difficult to do. And to your point, Ken, I had to take and pack up my laptop. But in the early mornings, I would get up before anybody else got up. So I wasn't there sleeping in, but I would go outside with my cup of coffee, watch the sunrise, do my class, interact with my students. And then at that point, when my family woke up, I was able just to unplug and enjoy time with them. And so when we say that there's no way that you can take time off, well, I wasn't able to take, quote, time off. However, I was able to manipulate my day. So therefore, I could spend time and enjoy my vacation when the others woke up and were ready to hit the ground running, for sure.
Yeah. So I want to start off this episode again. We're talking about vacations, that you and I are doing a great job of how we don't take vacations. And I think the idea how this came to mind was, I've got uncles and aunts who are in their retirement age. And I don't know how many conversations I've had with these retirees now, and the fact that they retire with vacation time. And I'm not talking about 40 hours. I'm talking about 100+ hours of vacation. And that may not seem like a whole lot to some, but if you think about the time that you don't spend recovering, regenerating from work, that's a lot of time. I mean, they're benefiting, right? They're collecting that money from the time that didn't take. But I'm just thinking now, it's like you have months of vacation time that you didn't take while you were working. Now you're getting paid for it, but you're also getting taxed for it. But from the vantage point that, there's a lot you left on the table when it comes to what you can do to get yourself, keep yourself whole, right? And you're not just giving it all to your job. So that was one of the inception, or one of the reasons why this topic, became a topic for us here today on Random Fit.
I think a lot of that too. And just so you guys know, Ken and I talk a lot about our topics, and we spend time putting points together and what we're going to say. And him and I had this conversation, and I think this is another reason that sparked it. And I'm going to put it out there. I never took my honeymoon. And so I'm getting ready to come up on a 10-year anniversary next year. And we're taking our honeymoon, and we're going to take 10 to 12 days off, and we're going to go out of the country to get away. But it's hard to do because when I'm not in front of my computer, or I'm not seeing clients and all the things that you just said, Ken, I don't get paid. So I have to think well in advance. And then we're going to talk about planning and stuff too. And then I have to think about childcare because I'm not going with my son, and he's got school and he's got baseball and all the things that kids do. And so it is going to be a financial thing that you have to do when you take time away. And we do talk about paid vacations in our notes, and we're going to talk about that. However, when we start thinking about the benefits, if you don't plan it, you're never going to do it. And the unfortunate thing is like I said, I was like, okay, we're going to do our honeymoon later. It's going to be later. It's going to be later. What's 10 years later? And we never did it because we didn't plan it. Now I've made the call. We're going to go, and it's done. It's just done. And if we didn't put it in the calendar, and Ken, it was you that said, just go, just plan it and go. And so sometimes you need that one person that's going to tell you to just do it. And that's the whole point of today's podcast. If you're sitting in your car, think about the last time you took time off, either with your family or solo. And if you haven't done it in a while, just do it. I think that tagline belongs to someone.
Yeah.
And
and Wendy, I think I made mention that to you because you've been talking about it. And it was like, it's like fish or cut bait at this point.
Are you tired of me talking about it? What's the deal?
Just shut up, Wendy, and take your vacation. But the idea that, you need to recharge. And I know how hard you work because you and I, as you said, we talk, but it's always like, okay, I have 5 minutes between now and my next client, or I've got a grade, or I got to put this next class on. So I know how hard you work, and I know how stressful things can be with travel, with family, and, balancing everything that there is to be balanced when it comes to being you, Wendy, your own business. You run your own business. You're an educator. You travel. You have kids who also plays sports, and that alone, that's a lot of shuffling around. And I'm almost in the same boat, not as busy as you, but busy as well. So if I could do it today, I would have made that call, booked it. But the reason for the episode is to say, if you haven't taken a vacation, if it's something that you can afford to do, it is within your means, by all means take it, just for the reasons that we're about to go over. So I think we should just start off that fact that, as far as our generation is concerned, we have known vacation to be around for as long as we've been around, but it wasn't always that way, considering it was back with the ancient Romans, where to escape the heat of Rome and the city, they would go out to the countryside and not just get relief from the heat, but also a time to rest and relax. So those that were well-to-do would leave town, but for a couple different purposes. So when we first look at the history of vacationing, what we are talking about is, I got to get out of here. It's too hot, it's too busy. Let's recover, and then we'll come back. And then as we get into the Industrial Revolution, where the middle class is rising, people have improved their financial situation to where now they can save some money and go out and get away from work and then come back after, I'm not sure how long they would take vacations back during the Industrial Revolution, but it's something that more people were able to do. So it wasn't just for the very rich or the very wealthy, but now as people earned more money, their living situation did improve. They were able to go out and about. And then to now, in the earlier 20th century, this is where more people were able to do it. But instead of the big excursion, now we are talking about the access to spas and resorts and other vacation spots. So people had more access because the facilities were more available. So one thing about the history for where I live here in Alameda, they used to call Alameda the Coney Island of the West. I don't know if you ever knew that, Wendy. I'm
I
not
did
sure if
not
you
know
ever
that.
told you that, Wendy.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, they used to actually have a beach with a roller coaster here in Alameda. I'm not sure what years it was up and running, um, but there's pictures around town, like the old black and white pictures of a roller coaster, beach, an enclosed area for people to swim, pools. So people used to come from San Francisco. This was before the Bay Bridge or even the Golden Gate Bridge was built out, and they used to have to go around the bay or they'll ferry over and they could actually go to Alameda. I think they call it Neptune Beach at the time. So we back in the day, it's not there anymore. There's houses in a mall there now. So
Well, but I mean, I think when you were talking about the different centuries and everything, when we talked about the 19th century, that's when it became more popular. And I think companies were starting to get the fact that people were overworked. And if you don't clear your mind and you don't get yourself in a good spot, now we always talk about self-care and everything, but that's when companies were like, listen, we'll pay you or for a week or so, or whatever the days were when you signed that contract that you were going to come on board for paid vacation. And so it was something that other countries had been doing. It's just the norm for them. And there are a lot of countries out there, and we can even talk about the Europeans versus the Americans, where people feel like, well, if I'm gone, I've got all this work to do when I get back, or my company, I can't step away right now because we're in the thick of whatever this may be. But in all reality, if you're overworked and you're tired and you're stressed, how good are you to your job and to the company and to those that you're surrounding yourself with, especially if you're a manager that has to manage different people. And, we were looking through some of the research and some of the health benefits. And Ken, one of the things that stuck out the most that I'm like, wow. And this is more specifically for a study that was done on men. But we always know that when you get a chance to decrease stress, that it's also going to reduce the chances of heart disease, and it helps you find kind of your center, right? But this one study that was done by Framingham Heart Study, they found that men who did not take vacations were 30% more likely to have a heart attack compared to those who took time off. And so that's a pretty compelling statistic. Again, there are a lot of other studies that have different numbers, but they're all about the same. And it's the same for females as well, because when we take time off of work, we still have the home work, meaning cooking, cleaning, taking care of the kids, being the mom. No offense to the dads, because I know that there's dads that do all of that as well. But it's sometimes hard to escape the day to day because we're just worried about what happens when we get back versus just stopping and taking time out of your head. Because they always say, like, when you die, you don't take your money with you. You don't take your material stuff with you, but you also are not leaving back memories for your family as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was on Google Scholar looking up some articles, and everyone that I had come across, and some of it I couldn't read the whole article, but you read the introduction, the abstract, and the conclusion, and the discussion points, and everything points at you need to take time off. You can't redline it 12 months out of the year. You have to take your time off. So that Framingham Heart Study was one of the ones that came out, especially when you talk about 30% greater chance of having an incident. That's not good. And there was a couple others. One in the what was it right here? The um our vacation's good for your health. 9-year mortality experience after a multiple risk factor intervention trial. And that one was talking about frequency of annual vacations by middle-aged men at high risk for coronary heart disease is associated with a reduced risk of all-cause mortalities. Okay, so it's more than just heart disease, right? We're talking about every reason that you could die, not related to accidents, that contributes to your death. So
maybe that's what we should have said. Hey, this is about how not to die. How this is going to like expand your your life on this earth. But I mean, you know, we see these statistics. We all know that we need a break, and we've done multiple podcasts on the importance of sleep and health and you know, the importance of all of that combined. But today when we're looking at this podcast in particular, so Recharge Right, the ultimate guide to vacationing with myself, Wendy Batts, and Ken Miller, we are literally trying to tell you guys that these studies are really important. And so even if one of you, whether it's your husband, whether it's yourself, whether it's things going on with your kids, you need to take a break. We've seen that it improves sleep. It's going to help with your sleep patterns. It's going to reduce your stress level. It's also going to help overall daily functioning. I don't know if you guys that don't sleep, if you ever sit down and you go to bed at night and you did everything right and you actually get 7 or 8 hours of sleep, how completely different you feel the next day in comparison to those that sleep 5 or 6 hours on average a night. It's completely different. And so another thing that I know we're going to highlight, not just the sleep and not just getting away from the daily stress of work, but think about the increase of physical activity. When you're on vacation, people are like, oh, you just sit back and relax. I do not. I don't know if you do, Ken, but I do not.
No, the last 3 times I got on a plane and called it a vacation, I was getting at least 20,000 steps a day because you're touring around, right? But, you know, one of those trips I traveled with my mother, who I helped her with her luggage. So my backpack on me and carrying around luggage. So, and if you're not in a place where you're staying at the same place the whole trip, that was a lot of lugging.
You put her in a different hotel?
No, I mean, we were in the same hotel, but I had to lug luggage into a car, out of a car, on a bus, you know, when you take the trams and all that. So it's a lot of activity, especially if you're taking one of those sightseeing type tours. But if you're on a cruise, you have to make time to move. But
well, not just that, but I mean, when I was planning or we're planning this trip to go away, one of the first questions, I'm working with a travel agent, one of the first questions she asked is, what do you like to do? And I had to stop and think, gosh, there's a lot of things that I want to do. I want to take these tours where you're walking around the city and learning more about the history and learning more about the people and just the culture of where I'm going to be. I want to do different types of, you know, wine tastings or food tastings or whatever it is. I want to go and hike. I mean, we took an unbelievable trip to Israel. And when I started thinking about that trip, we hiked Masada, we did the Dead Sea. We ended up taking a ton of tours. We went to Jerusalem and walked around the churches. We did all the things that made me love Israel even more. And I expected none of it. And I was like, oh, okay, I ate like a champ. I did this, but we walked around and were so active that when I got on the scale, I didn't freak out. Like normally if I was just sitting on a beach, you know, having mojitos and eating like a crazy person. So there can be a lot of physical activity, but also the history and what you're learning, I think is something that when we take vacations, it doesn't have to be flying far and doing things out of the country. And it doesn't have to be expensive. Ken, I think that's also another thing. People are like, I don't take vacations because it's expensive. It doesn't have to be. Go camping. Bring a tent.
No, and there's different levels of, let's say, camping being a very, very, very economical way of getting out and about. And there's even then different levels of camping. You can go car camping. You can go cabin camping, tent, basically the cheapest, whatever you can carry on your back plus water. That's one way of going about. So there is a way to get away that matches, what you want to spend, whatever your budget allows. So camping is one great way. Plus, you're out in nature. We've talked about earthing and physically getting in touch with nature, touching the trees, going to a beach, lake, taking the shoes off. So from that
Hostels. There's hostels too. There's hostels for people that can do those.
Yeah, I actually have a friend's son who backpacked through Europe, and kid that just graduated college, doesn't have much money, and it was a way he saw the world, literally saw the world with a backpack and a little bit of money. But hostels was a great way. He actually slept outside in a few countries, but of course, where it was safe. But hostels was a great option for him as well.
Well, and I mean, I married someone that did that right out of college, and I was like, wow, I wish I would have done that, because I didn't take time in between graduating and then starting my job. I was actually doing my job while I was working or going to school. And then when I graduated, I just continued on into a different role. However, I think a lot of times when we're looking at Americans and comparing them to other individuals that are maybe different countries, every time I was looking up things for vacation, it was interesting to see on average that Americans in most jobs that do provide paid vacation, they're getting anywhere from 10 to 14 days. And the amount of people that are taking those 10 or 14 days, to your point of what you said earlier about your family, they didn't take those days, or maybe they took a small portion of those days. And Europeans, they get on average 20 to 30 paid vacation days, which when you're looking at health, job satisfaction, as well as just overall well-being, those individuals that took the time off are healthier than those who didn't. Says a lot.
It says a lot, because I just remember my first eye-opening, a conversation I had with, I think she was from Germany. We were in the Philippines. So I was visiting family and friends there. She was doing a solo vacation to one of the islands, and she was primarily surfing. So as the conversation goes, we're talking, and she's saying, yeah, I'm going to be here for 3 weeks. So she's going to be on a resort island in the Philippines for 3 weeks, surfing, eating, hiking, and all that. I'm like, 3 weeks? Boy, you must have stored up. But then she tells me that no, Europeans, especially her company, they give upwards of a month off a year. And she was spending 3 weeks of that surfing, right? Because and the idea is that it does take about that long to recharge the battery. So she's one that was taking full advantage of what was built into her job.
Well, and there are a lot of different ways of looking at it. We talked about camping, we've talked about hostels, but if you want to also just have all inclusive, don't worry about it. There are so many different cruises out there where you can experience different things. When you pay for the cruise, you're paying for your food. You're budgeting yourself to where if you get off the ship to go do something and you're doing these excursions, you're choosing how much to pay when you're on land versus on water. And a lot of people love the cruise because they don't have to think about anything. They can leave their stuff there, get off the boat, go explore, and then come back, and then they shower and dress for dinner, and it's all done and inclusive. There are other people that don't want to just be on the water. They wanted to go island hopping or doing something like that. But Ken, I think we talk about, when we think of vacation, it has to be, we have to go and do these things, and you have to get on a flight. And you don't. I mean, even if you take, an in-city vacation, just unplug, do something where I've seen it everywhere, digital detox. That is super important. Get away from your phone, put it down. Remember back in the day, before I even went to college, we didn't have that. We were stuck to the wall on this cord that always got tangled up, and it was a hot mess. If you knew everyone's phone number, your memory was good, like you had all of this stuff. But when you got in the car, because I mean, we drove more than we flew as a family. We were going to experience things as a family without a phone in the hand. And I think we've lost touch with those days. And when I think back, I mean, I never saw my dad on his phone and was on his phone when I'm trying to have a conversation with him. He didn't have that. He was all in to whatever I was talking about, whether he wanted to be or not. And I think we need to sometimes take a look at where we were and how much what a positive influence that was into comparison to having these. Everybody can get a hold of you 24/7 because the phone is with you in your pocket, and that is not healthy.
Yeah, no, it's not. And to that point with digital detox, I was reading again, just going down a bunch of rabbit holes,
Me too.
looking up vacations. There was one, it was an all men's resort in Costa Rica.
Mhm.
So for busy professionals that want to get away from the family, get away from work, get away from the digital, the blue screen, the phones, the tablets, the computers. And where I read it was if you needed to get a hold of that person in the case of an emergency, you had to contact a certain phone number for the place. So if it was something that actually had to go through, it had to go through the place, and then they would let you know, and you can take care of it as you. But that was, needless to say, not a cheap option, right? But it's yoga, hikes, country, forest walks, all of that stuff. So,
well, and I have a client who is a CEO of a company, and she does that every year. She goes by herself. Her husband goes as well, but at a different time. They don't go together. And it's literally for them to recharge themselves. So when they're back together, they're just all in to, okay, now they're just looking at things. She's like, I come back and I've got a different perspective on my job, on what I have to do. And Ken, I mean, when I went on my vacation, this, I made a really big call sitting there on the beach, looking at the water by myself. My kid was off with his godmother looking at sea creatures. My husband was playing golf with another friend, and I was there because I wanted to be by myself. And that was the time where I did a lot of reflection. That's the time where I thought about, okay, what have I done this year? What do I want to change? And there were certain things that were causing me anxiety. There was a trip I was supposed to go on, and I'm like, do I really want to do this? And I called and said, I'm not going. I mean, and that's something that's out of my character, because I'm like, you know what? I said I was going to do it, but then I thought about pros and cons, and I'm like, you know what? Why? What was it going to do for me? What's in it for me? And there was nothing. I mean, yes, financially, I was going to make a little bit of money, but then again, I was away from my family for a long period of time doing something that was really not going to have this impression, like long lasting, something that's going to be my legacy. It wasn't there. It took the water to do that, though.
Yeah. And, what you described, Wendy, is something that I read. When you're on a vacation, part of that is to plan your next vacation, right? Is just to make sure that you do something to set yourself up. You're not going to talk yourself out of it. If you want to recapture what it is that you've been able to recapture physically, mentally, emotionally by being away from work, maybe being away from family, but you're actually going to be a better working employee or a business owner if you've got something already set up by way of time away from everything, whether it's with the family or solo. So what you did there, Wendy, you just described perfectly what I had read about. While on vacation, plan your next vacation.
Well, and I think it's also, I mean, my key takeaways is everyone should do it, because I am I'm the worst at doing it. I'm finding excuses of not to do it. I think about financially, well, I've got to board the dogs, and then I have to worry about this. And well, if I'm not working, I have to cancel this. And I don't want my clients to be upset if I take 5 days away, or however many days I'm going to be not available. And am I going to hurt their journey? Guys, we're in it for ourselves, right? We're trying to help guide our clients. Our clients are going to understand. They take vacations, and we're like, yes, you need to go do that. We're telling them the importance of taking vacation, and this is what you need to do. And here's your program while you're gone. And I have high expectations that you're going to do the right things. we have to sometimes stop and think, okay, we're telling our parent or people to do this, but what are we doing? And are we taking our own advice? And I was the worst. I'm trying to get better because I am also trying to make memories with my son and do things, because I know once he's 18, he's leaving the nest, and I'm hoping he still wants to have vacations with me. But you need to take time, because you're not going to get those days back. And they always say this, Ken, you know this, the days are long, the years are short. There's a lot to be said. And if you don't take time to enjoy what's out there because you're worried financially or you're worried this, then you're not helping your health. You're not helping yourself mentally. You're not recovering the right way. And you're not really planning the next thing and giving yourself something to look forward to. Put it on the calendar, because then you're going to look forward to that next vacation, and then maybe starting a fitness journey if you want to be in a bathing suit or do whatever it is that's going to motivate you, you know?
Yeah. And that's I think one of the things that we wanted to highlight through this episode of Random Fit, now that we're talking about recharging right and the ultimate guide to vacationing, is it's just to, go online, see what's out there. If it's something that sounds remotely interesting to you, do it. That's the only way you'll find out if it works for you. Read the reviews, reach out to friends, see if they've done anything like that, and take time away. Like you said, Wendy, just disconnect, build core memories with your family, and recharge and get ready for the next 10.5 months before your next vacation, however often that you take one. But there's a lot. I mean, I spent more time looking up vacations, and my wife was sitting there next to me going, let's do that one, let's do that one, let's do that one. So now I gotta search around more for what I'm gonna do now. But I'm glad you got settled.
I did. And it wasn't my husband over my shoulder saying, let's do this, let's do that. I'm like, hey, by the way, what's a good month for us to be gone for 10 days? We're going. And he's like, okay, if you take the ownership sometimes, it's just great.
Done deal.
Yeah.
Well, Wendy, this was a fun one to talk about, and I appreciate your sharing your own personal journey and I guess struggles with taking vacations. But it's something that we all have. Actually, I'm sure more of us, have a hard time to admit that we have troubles taking vacations. So hopefully you, as a listener of Random Fit, have been able to kind of take some notes and see what you can do to find a vacation that serves your purpose in either getting away, spending more time with family, or just not work. So hopefully you got something out of that. But if you like what we talked about today, follow, subscribe, share, download, and rate us a 5 out of 5 if you don't mind. We'd appreciate that. But comment and let us know what you want us to talk about. We will do that on an upcoming episode, hopefully. So until next time, everybody, take care and be well.